Hello YouTubers, welcome to my channel. I hope you're doing well today. And we have another thing to discuss. This is Harry's therapy that he did live on air. Now, looking at Harry and the 10 things that we learned from Harry's live interview with this trauma expert, let's just take a look. His name is Dr. Gabor Mate, and he is doing this. He did this live stream with Harry to talk about his trauma. People paid to attend. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend. I had things going on that day. But I want to look at, from what I have researched, some of the takeaways from that. Some of the takeaways from this interview. Number one, Harry is not, or Dr. Mate is not deferential to Prince Harry. He really is somebody who doesn't look to him as, oh, you're a prince, you're a prince. He's someone who has demonstrated that he is not really in awe of Harry at all, just from his demeanor. And that's a good thing, because you want someone who is going to be differential. But I almost question that, even because Harry has agreed to do this with this doctor. Now, at some point, does the doctor become somewhat complicit in what your objectives are, what you're trying to achieve for the sake of doing this broadcast? That is to be questioned. He challenged his opinions frequently and would openly disagree with Harry, including a moment where Harry claimed that he had enjoyed a happy childhood. Now, this ties into Dr. Mate's obvious self-confidence. He once told an interviewer, "I am arrogant, I like attention." Okay, so this is what Dr. Mate is saying. He's questioning whether or not Harry had a happy childhood. Now, I think comparatively to how he could have grown up, he had a good childhood, because he came from a woman that loved her children very much, and Harry definitely benefited in a good way. Now, part of the problem is that he didn't like growing up in a bubble, and I'll talk about that as being one of these moments. However, he had a decent childhood, because he came from privilege, where he was afforded the best of the best everything. So looking at his childhood, yes, I would say he had a good childhood, a happy childhood. But when you compare it to the trauma of a lot of young people that have experienced horrific upbringings by very abusive parents, he had a good life. So I'm agreeing that he did have a good, happy childhood with some traumatic things that he had the resources to get support from and to get help with. Number two, his condemnation compels Harry to reveal more. Now, while Harry pointed out how much positive feedback Spare had received, citing essays of praise, he has plenty detractors. Yes, and you get used to these detractors when you come out in open talking about your life. So he goes on to say that he admits he is galvanized by negative opinions, telling Dr. Mate, "The more my enemies criticize me, the more I need to share." And that's unfortunate that you feel that you need to keep sharing with all the criticism, because you're going to end up in an endless cycle of going nowhere. So keep explaining away so that we can watch your reality show in real time. Because you wanting to explain everything, it's not going to get everybody to say, "Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying finally." Yes, Harry. Thanks for keeping on that track of explaining, because now finally you have convinced me. There ain't no amount of explaining that this man is ever going to convince myself about all the things that he is doing. So he will keep complaining, and he will keep getting nowhere until he is able to change the direction of the complaining that he has had so far. He will end up nowhere, because he cannot see the stupidness of his ways. And if you're not willing to own up to your own faults and cause of your own unhappiness, then you'll never be happy, because you'll keep looking for it to come from somewhere else. And you'll never find it. You'll never find it. 3, Harry believes that some of his experiences with drugs helped him. This is a very dangerous thing that he has done. Now, I can see how he talks about how it has helped him. However, there are people that have been harmed by such drugs. And because he has such a high profile platform, it's very irresponsible to talk about how it helped you without putting up a disclaimer to how it can not be good for everybody. That, I believe, is very irresponsible. He says that he admitted to taking a range of recreational drugs, including cocaine and marijuana. We know this from his book, Spare. He talks about how it did nothing for him but giving him temporary sense of belonging. While he talks about marijuana really did help him. And I do know that a lot of people talk about how medical marijuana has helped them. I've seen it help people with seizures and other things, but it's just not for everybody. And I wouldn't say that everyone should do this. But Harry saying it reveals a lot about what he's still doing. So to me, it lets me know that he's still using marijuana. He's still involved in recreational drug use to help him cope. So I find that interesting. It was the cleaning of the windscreen, cleaning of the windshield, the removal of life's filters, just as much as on Instagram. These layers of filters, he said, of his experience of psychedelics, which can cause hallucinations. He talks about how it removed it all for me and brought me a sense of relaxation, release, comfort, a lightness that I managed to hold on to for a period of time. And I started doing it recreationally, and then I started to realize how good it was for me. I would say it is one of the fundamental parts of my life that changed and helped me deal with the traumas and pains of the past. So, this is something that he is still doing. And even with the hallucinations, the hallucinogenics that he is still taking, I see it as a very dangerous path that he is on, only because there was this story that came out about this 29-year-old girl who ended up committing suicide from doing the very same thing that Harry is talking about. And the family has since come out to talk about how irresponsible it is for Harry to discuss this as a good thing, because they've seen the other side of this and how it has really hurt their family. And Harry even doing this whole live, openly talking about his therapy and his trauma, this is all to promote Spare. This is all a money-making venture. So there's no real trying to get people to see anything. This is all to help the publishers make the money that they paid him. And he can try to spin it any kind of way he wants, but he has sold his soul to the devil. He has sold his soul to make all of this money. So what is he going to do when he looks back and he's made all the money, the contracts are over, and he looks back at all the things that he did for money? What kind of trauma do you think will then hit him? Because right now he can't see that trauma which awaits him. He can't see it, but he will one day. How do you think that will affect him then and his marriage, if he's even still married by then? Patty Reagan, thanks to the viewer who told me about this, she wrote a book about her family. She looked back on it with regret. How can you ever come back to your family ever the same again once you've talked so negatively about them, aired all of your dirty laundry before the world to gain money? How do you ever go back to your normal? You don't. You spin into this forever vortex of disillusion that is not going to give you any place of comfort. And the regret for Harry is coming in a very big way. And it's really sad to see, because this is someone that has clearly had traumatic experiences, that was getting help. But then this woman crept into his life and hurt him, and continues to hurt him in a very big way. Dr. Matei diagnosed Harry as having ADD, attention deficit disorder, and Harry just agreed, okay, he has attention deficit disorder. Like these private moments, you're paying people to watch. You're an exhibitionist. You are on display for people to watch you in your most vulnerable state. and to be diagnosed with something before the whole world. How do you think that affects your psyche? It's one thing to be diagnosed in private, but it's a whole nother thing when you're doing it to make money and people are watching you. Because then there is trauma, and then there is a diagnosis from what you have done that can affect you. So, yeah, that was number 4. Number 5, he denied being a victim or seeking sympathy. Now, you know what? You're just a downright liar. You a lie if I ain't never seen somebody tell a lie. Okay? Presumably aware that some critics and commentators see him and his wife as playing the victim. The most recent example being an episode of South Park, which sees a prince and princess in exile demanding privacy and attention at the same time. Harry twice denied seeing himself as a victim. Yeah, just keep telling yourself that, Harry. Just keep saying it to yourself. Yeah, but you are. You're a victim. You just don't know that you are playing the victim card, but you are. Because you always try to make it seem like someone else's fault. It's never your fault. This is why you're playing the victim. You never come out and say, well, I could see how I may have triggered someone to do this to me, or that was not right for me to do this. There's never any self-accountability. So how can you not be trying to be the victim when you're always blaming other people? That is the definition of being a victim. You're always blaming people, so don't try to talk your way out of the truth. We see the truth. He always said, I have never looked for sympathy in this for me. Instead, he claimed his efforts were an act of service. Now, you know what? You just a downright liar, trotting liar, trying to spin something that is not there. Act of service does not do something to make millions of dollars. You do it with your own investment. You sacrifice so that others can benefit. You've done nothing to sacrifice without other people. Without yourself making millions of dollars. There will be people that will believe this nonsense. There are people that will believe Harry is doing this as an act of service. You were looking for a paycheck. So how can you say you did this as an act of service? And I have a problem with that because I know what a sense of service is. It comes from your commitment to want to see good without personal gain from it or without an expectation of personal gain. It just really is so unbelievable that you can try to spin this into an act of service for other people when clearly you've done it to make millions of dollars to pay your bills because we've heard you say it. We need to make money. Your father cut you off. So you are showing yourself, you are giving of these experiences and all of these private moments so that you can have some financial gain. It really is such a really sad and pathetic existence for someone who has come from his lifestyle. He could go off and live a very quiet, peaceful life, very well privileged, giving of service to other people, if that's what this was all about that. Because that's what the royal family does. What is different about what he's doing now in terms of active service? He's able to make his own request for money for this act of service. He's able to make his own rules for these acts of service. He's able to make himself the leader, the highest leader on the toll of being the person who is accepting the jobs for active service. He is setting the tone for his own active service. So this is about money for him because he was doing an act of service already when he was with the British royal family. You know, it's so appalling that you lie. You try to get people to see you one way. You are so deceptive. And this is why it is his wife that is the cause of all of this. This is her spin job. This is Meghan Markle bringing this out for him to see that you can make it an act of service. You can do all these good things over the cloak of giving back. But in reality, it's all self-serving. Number 6. Harry said British soldiers did not necessarily agree with war in Afghanistan. And this is the one thing that I agree with. I mean, when you're in the military, you do what you're told to do. You don't get to say, okay, I'm going to go fight for this. I'm not going to go fight for that. You do what you're told to do. And at least he was able to commit to what he signed up for. I will give Harry that. You signed up, you said you were going to do it, and you did it. Now, although I have heard, but I don't really know, that he was still protected within that military compound so that he would not be in the most life-threatening situations. There is controversy around that. So still, as a prince in the military, you still have some protections. You still have that I'm a prince. Your grandmama at the time was the Queen of England. So you're not just like all the other Joe Schmoes out there fighting. Like, you've got a background that somewhat protects you, right? So it's still not what it could have been, but to his credit, at least he did it, and he owned up to doing it, even if he was protected. Okay, number 7. Duke loves hugging his children. So he talks about how he wasn't given affection. He grew up as a child who didn't really get hugs and loves and, all these things. Well, let's just look at what Princess Diana did. Diana made sure this is what she did with her children because she had the same problem. But unfortunately, Diana passed away. And so when he was 11, 12 years old, he didn't really get these hugs and affection like he used to. His father, Charles, did what he could. However, Charles grew up the same way, dude. Your father grew up the same way. And I used to have some criticism about things that happened to me when I was growing up. But my parents did the best that they could with what they knew. And so did your parents, Harry. So when do you give credit to people and try to move on with your life and look at what, I did have this. I had this. I had the best of the best. I mean, I could just go to Africa. I could just go on a trip. I could just go get this. I mean, whatever you wanted in your self-misery or pity, you had the resources to go do whatever you wanted to do. Do you know that there are people in this world that have trauma, that have no affection, that are abused by their parents, and they have not a dime in the bank account? How do you deal with that when you have trauma? There's no escape. There's no trying to go feel better or to seek resources to help you. These are the real people that have the trauma that you really look at like, oh, yeah, that's terrible. But looking at Harry with his trauma and the problems that he has had, you need to also address your privilege when you say these things and say that it wasn't as bad as it could have been. That's what he needs to be saying, but he doesn't do it because he can never give other people credit for anything. He can never give other people credit for doing the best that they could do when they knew how to parent, whatever. Like, he is always downing people because it makes him rise up and above. And he can look down and say, y'all did this to me, and I feel high and mighty, and I feel like I'm the victim. He's victimizing himself to get sympathy. So he talks these things about his growing up, but go look at people that have real trauma to complain about, because you still are above the fray when it comes to your privilege and the trauma. And this is why you put your trauma in private. You put your trauma in a private setting because this is for you to heal from, not to talk about it to the world as if you're trying to garner something from the public about it, because no one can relate to you. You are a prince. Hello, your grandmama is on the money that the people go out and try to earn every day that they don't even have enough of to pay their own bills. Your grandmama and now your father is on the money. How do you get any sympathy for that? For anything you've gone through when that is your life? Okay? Don't nobody want to hear your nonsense. You just make me mad with your stupidness. You just don't get it. It's like someone needs to just like get you to see the reality that you really are in at this moment, because you don't see the real reality of the world, the true pain that people have. You clearly don't see it, or you clearly don't care about it, because you dismiss it and talk about yourself like this is the standard. And you don't recognize how other people have it so much worse. Need to recognize this, Harry. You need to recognize it. But because you are a spoiled brat, just like your wife, you'll never see it. You'll be lost forever in your stupidness forever. Ever. Okay, number 8. Harry compared himself to the boy in the bubble. Yes, you're a boy in the bubble. And this boy in the bubble is able to make millions of dollars from being the boy in the bubble, aren't ya? Oh, yes. You can be in the bubble and you can make phone calls and have access to almost anybody in the whole world that'll talk to you because of where you come from being in that bubble. So stop your complaining and live in your bubble and try to get out of the nonsense that you live and talk in every day now that you're off on your own outside your so-called royal bubble. You know, you're in your own little bubble in California now, but at the same time, you just don't have a place to really complain about being in a bubble, dude. You got your health. I mean, you referenced a boy that was in the bubble. He didn't even have his own health. He lived till he was 12 years old. He didn't have a life. Okay, he was in a bubble, but you're in a bubble of luxury with golden walls and access and all the best of the best inside your bubble. With your bill of health, your children are healthy. You know, you are in a bubble of privilege, man. Number 9, there was no mention of William during this therapy session, none whatsoever. Now, some could say perhaps he is just trying to, not give William any more publicity or to really bring him under this proverbial bus that we've always been talking about. Maybe he's just trying to just stay away from William because, he's already caused him enough pain. Or perhaps he is really feeling like William didn't really do anything for him, which will go against everything that was said prior to his marriage to Meghan Markle. When he and his brother were very close, they supported each other. He even talked about supporting William when he would become king one day. He had a completely different stance on his relationship with his brother until that woman came into the picture. And it is this woman who is jealous of Catherine and her stance of being the future queen that Meghan can't seem quite to contend with. And so she has brought divide between these brothers because she can't have top dog. Meghan is a woman that has caused everything that we see between William and Harry. I'm a woman. And I know a thing or two about how women think, especially this woman. And this woman, I can tell you right now, she is the cause for everything that we are seeing. And this is based on number 10. Harry believes Meghan saved him. No, she didn't. No, she didn't. Harry has always been vocal about when it comes to praising his wife, so it was no surprise to hear him describe her as an incredible human being to Dr. Mattei. My wife saved me. I was stuck in this world. She was from a different world and helped me to draw out of that, he said. But none of the elements of my life now would have been possible without me seeing it for myself. Okay, you know what, Mr. Harry? I'm going to just tell you something right now. She helped you see something that you would never have done on your own. Your wife has dug out the bad side of Satan in you. She has brought this out of you, and she's exposed it on the world stage. Harry goes on to say that his relationship with Meghan, she had helped to educate him on the plight of racism. Yes, she may have brought it out, but she brought out how you could take advantage of racism. This is what Meghan showed you. Because this is not a woman who has experienced true racism the way that most people of color experience racism. It's a different kind of racism. It's a privileged type of racism. It's a racism that is there, but still you have all the advantages. So this is a man who thinks he has really seen what true racism is, but seen it through the eyes of a woman that's always wanted to be a white woman who looks like a white woman now as an older woman, because I know when she was younger, she did look a little bit more ethnic. But this is not a woman that's going to really show you what true racism is. She's bringing out how you can take advantage of racism. She's bringing out the advantages of monetizing the plight of people that really suffer from racism. You're not really seeing it for what it really, really is, because you didn't marry a woman that looks black. There's different types, and there's different kinds of racism that can hit people in different ways. And I think people that have darker skin, that are more ethnic looking, they have it a lot more difficult than people that can pass for white. So the racism that he is talking about, I believe, because it's coming from someone like Meghan, is the racism that they're trying to benefit from. Not that he's really learned anything really truly from it, as it really truly is, by people that really look black and have experienced real raw racism because of the darkness of their skin. Marry a dark-skinned black woman and then tell me what you've learned from racism. It will be different from what you've learned from Meghan than what you have learned from another black woman. He goes on to say that I think what people perhaps don't understand is the pain that is caused as for an individual is huge, but then the pain that it causes in society is immense. You know, Harry and Meghan, they're really trying to create something that is only going to keep them deeper into their ignorances of this brand that they're trying to build. No one's going to take them seriously. They're never going to get to where they want to be, because one day Harry's going to realize he did it all for nothing. It brought nothing in return. It brought humiliation. It brought vulnerability that he's not going to be proud of. It's going to make things so much worse. Harry's wife is the cause for the problems that he is having right now with his family, with his perception, his persona. Everything is made worse by Meghan trying to monetize it, now trying to bring it out. She brought out the worst in him. And a wife that does that to a man is not a good woman. She did not bring out the best in this man. Because if she did, they would still have relationship with the British royal family, the public, and the press somewhat, right? With the press somewhat. But you can't tell me that a woman is good that has turned you against your own family. That is not a good woman. And sadly enough, everyone, Harry still doesn't see the cause and the problems that he has because of the woman he has married.